Today we're talking about the fascinating world of Carl Icahn and how he transformed activist investing into what some might call the ultimate passive income machine. Carl Icahn isn't your typical investor. While most of us think of passive income as dividend stocks or rental properties, Icahn turned corporate activism into a fortune-building machine. But how? Let's start with Icahn's definition of activism. In his own words, Icahn says, "We go into a company and we do well for every shareholder. We make money for the shareholders by cleaning the company up, getting on the board, and saying, you gotta do this, this, and this." Unlike most investors who buy stocks and hope they go up, Icahn identified a fundamental flaw in corporate America, what he calls the clubby board problem. These are boards filled with friends who protect underperforming CEOs. Instead of accepting poor management, Icahn turned this dysfunction into opportunity. Here's the shocking truth. Icahn realized that in many companies, the CEO was actually the most valuable asset to remove. Icahn says, you look at them and say, this company is amazingly cheap. It's got great assets but doesn't make any money. Then you look and say, why doesn't it make money? You start talking to analysts who say, the reason is that the guy who runs it is an idiot. He just shouldn't be there. But here's where Icahn's genius appears. While most shareholders would just sell their shares when facing bad management, Icahn does the opposite. He buys more and then forces change. Icahn's shocking revelation was simple but powerful. Many companies are worth far more than their stock price suggests, but they're being held back by poor leadership. Consider this example from Icahn himself about Motorola. The CEO went and lost $8 billion by building 18 operating systems, so the shareholders are better off taking the money out than losing $18 billion. This is the first part of Icahn's passive income trick, identifying companies where simply removing the CEO would instantly increase value. It's like finding a sports car with the parking brake on, just release the brake, and suddenly you've gained tremendous value without changing the underlying asset. But Icahn doesn't stop there. He takes it a step further. Once Icahn identifies these undervalued companies, he launches what insiders call the pressure campaign. This is where passive becomes active, but only temporarily. Icahn's genius is in creating a situation where other shareholders realize they've been accepting mediocrity. Once he points it out, it becomes obvious to everyone. Here's how the pressure campaign works. First, Icahn accumulates a significant position in the company, usually between 5 to 10%. Then he goes public with detailed criticism of management, often through strongly worded letters to the board or interviews with financial media. Icahn says, I'd spend 5 hours a night until 2 in the morning looking for companies. It's not a science. You build certain instincts. This public pressure serves two purposes. It rallies other shareholders to his cause and puts the board in the uncomfortable position of defending poor performance. Suddenly, directors who were comfortable in their clubby board find themselves answering tough questions. But here's the shocking trick most people miss. Icahn doesn't always need to win the proxy fight to win financially. Now for the revelation that transforms activism into passive income. Once Icahn applies pressure, one of three things typically happens, all of which make him money. Option 1. The company implements Icahn's suggestions, improving performance and driving up the stock price. Option 2. The board replaces the CEO or makes other significant changes to avoid a prolonged battle. Option 3. The company buys back Icahn's shares at a premium just to make him go away, what Wall Street calls greenmail. The beauty of Icahn's approach is that he wins in almost any scenario. The mere announcement of his involvement often drives the stock price up 5 to 10% immediately. Take Navistar, one of Icahn's targets. Icahn says, we're on the board there. The guy built this goddamn contraption, it's like the crazy uncle in the garage. He blew $10 billion on it. After Icahn got involved, Navistar replaced its CEO, restructured operations, and the stock eventually rebounded significantly. This wasn't luck. It was Icahn's playbook in action. Now, it's crucial to understand what sets Icahn apart from what he calls despicable short-term activists. Icahn says, I get angry. There are guys that go in and say, we're activists, and they raise a little hell, go out in the newspapers. Oh, XYZ, we're there and we want to see that company sold, and we ain't gonna rest till it's sold. The stock jumps 5 points, they sell the stock, pump and dump. That's despicable. Unlike these short-term players, Icahn typically stays invested for years. He often takes board seats and works to implement real operational improvements. This long-term approach is why even critics like BlackRock's Larry Fink, who has criticized activist investors, respects Icahn. Icahn says, "Larry built a great company and he's a very smart guy, and I like him personally, and I agree with him, by the way, on short-termism." The key difference is that Icahn's activism creates lasting value, not just a temporary stock pop. Now you might be thinking, this sounds great for a billionaire, but how can regular investors benefit? Here's the shocking truth. You don't need billions to use Icahn's methods. There are 3 ways everyday investors can apply his insights. First, you can simply follow Icahn's moves. When he discloses a new position through SEC filings, consider investing alongside him. His track record speaks for itself. Second, look for companies with the same characteristics Icahn targets: valuable assets, poor financial performance, and entrenched management. Even if you can't force change yourself, other activists might. Third, focus on companies where a single leadership change could unlock significant value. As Icahn says, the most important thing in the company is the CEO, by far. There's nothing close. The real insight from Icahn is recognizing that corporate governance problems create mispriced assets. These are opportunities hiding in plain sight. This approach turns activism into a form of passive income, because once the catalyst for change appears, whether from Icahn or another activist, you can benefit from the subsequent value creation without having to force the change yourself. Carl Icahn revolutionized investing by recognizing that corporate dysfunction creates opportunity. While true activism requires billions and years of experience, understanding Icahn's methods gives everyday investors an edge. The next time you see a company with great assets but poor performance, remember Icahn's words: you find certain deals where it hits you over the head. It's instinctive. By identifying these situations before activists get involved, or by investing alongside proven activists like Icahn, you can create your own version of activism-driven passive income. That's our show for today. Remember, the market's greatest opportunities often come not from new technologies or emerging markets, but from fixing what's already broken.